Welcome to Amino TV, Mr. Cunningham, and thank you for taking your time to be here.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this very much. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Cunningham, you'll be visiting Copenhagen in October, where you'll be speaking at the Speakers Club. And I saw in the program that you are going to speak about how to beat the odds as a new entrepreneur, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't make it to become life entrepreneurs. And you'll also be speaking about taking advantage of a crisis. A lot of people are talking about the big financial crisis, and you'll actually talk about how to turn that into something productive. So, Mr. Cunningham, just to start off, what can Danish entrepreneurs do to avoid making the most common mistakes when starting up a business?
Well, it's a great question, and I got to tell you that the answer is not just for your Danish listeners. The problem with entrepreneurs is literally a problem that's found all over the world, and really there's two or three problems. Let me mention them to you real briefly. The first one is most entrepreneurs are in love with their idea. They're in love with their product. They're in love with the genius of their product. And the problem is this, that business is an intellectual sport. And anytime you fall in love with something that doesn't love you back, you're setting yourself up for major potential problems. Most business owners who start the company because they think that if they just come up with a new idea and they love their idea enough and they're passionate about their idea enough that somehow that's going to translate into business or economic success. And it's simply not true. You and I can both think of a lot of products that are fairly lousy products that have made an enormous amount of money. Some of your listeners that are watching this interview are Apple devotees. They love Apple Computer. Apple Computer was there first with the best product, and yet they got their butt kicked by Microsoft, who came in second with an inferior product. So number one mistake is falling in love with the product. Second mistake that business owners of all stripes make, whether they're starting up or been in business for 10 or 15 years, the second mistake is the belief that the solution to a problem is growth. Getting bigger does not solve business problems. Getting bigger grows the problem. Look, if you were a doctor and I came to you and I said, there's something wrong with my stomach, and so you diagnosed me and said, oh, Keith, you have a tumor in your stomach. We can get it out and you're going to be okay, but the solution to getting rid of the tumor is, Keith, you need to gain 100 pounds. Now, that's a lousy solution to the health crisis that I would be facing. I think that the third problem in reality is that most business owners are missing business skills and tools. So let me tell you what that means. If I wanted to be a world champion ping pong player, I would need to learn ping pong skills and tools. If I wanted to be a grand master of chess, I would need to learn chess skills and tools. And most business owners don't have the requisite business skills and tools, and so they wind up failing, not because they don't love their idea, but rather because they don't have the skills and tools. So here's the bumper sticker. The bumper sticker is, great operators get tired and great business owners get rich. The key is to develop the business skills and tools that will allow you to attain the business success that you want.
But it sounds strange to me and probably to a lot of our viewers, because a lot of entrepreneurs and startups will tell you that the reason they get out of the bed in the morning and the reason they work day and night is because they have this great idea and they are passionate about the idea. So if you take away the focus on the idea and put focus on the theories of running businesses. Don't you miss the passion about, the passion that drives you and makes you work hard and work long?
Right, you know what? It's a great point. I'm not saying that passion about your idea is unimportant. I'm saying that being passionate about your idea will not make you rich. Being passionate about your idea may make you be fulfilled. But being passionate about your idea has nothing to do with getting consumers to think your idea is as cool as you do. And one of the mistakes that business owners is they're all about the coolness of their idea. Nobody else is doing it. They thought of this idea. They were standing in the shower and they had an entrepreneurial seizure. They all of a sudden they came up with this great new wonderful idea and they're very passionate about their idea. I'm in favor of being excited about your idea. I'm just saying that being excited, the marketplace does not care how excited and passionate you are about how great your idea is. The marketplace cares about only one or two things, and that the main one being, if I buy your idea, if I buy your product, will it fix my problem? You stop and think about it. Every time you buy a product, you literally don't ask, you have never asked yourself the question, okay, if I buy this product from this particular company, am I sure that the owner is really, really, really passionate about this product? Last time you bought a computer, last time you bought a pencil, last time you bought a car, you weren't looking around asking the question, are these people passionate about their idea? Is this their purpose in life? You just asked the question, you said, I'm in pain, I have a problem, and can this product solve my problem, and can it do it at a better value than what I can get from the competition? So I'm not saying passion's a bad idea at all, I'm just saying it ain't going to get you rich. Business skills and tools will allow you to get rich.
You yourself went down with a business in the beginning of the 90s, I believe, a real estate business. And when I read about you in biographies and articles and likewise, you are saying that it shocked you that the real estate market in Texas, where you live and work, suddenly the bottom fell out and you went bankrupt, big style. How did you manage to climb up and to reinvent yourself and get out of the big debt and misery?
Usually when I get interviewed, I'm asked that question, and I always kind of go, "Oh man, why did he have to bring that up?" It's a great question, and I think you have used the words I was going to use. I think all of us are called to reinvent ourselves all the time. Look, every single person who's listening to us has had a change. The only constant in business is change. Changes are what drives opportunities. Changes are what creates problems. If you're relatively weak, then the change is going to look more like a problem. If you're strong, the change will look more like an opportunity. And I think what all of us are required to do is reinvent ourselves on a regular basis. I had to do that. The reinvention consisted of regaining my confidence. The reinvention consisted of me working on my own psychology. Because after you've lost as much money as I lost, and whether you've lost as much as I've lost, or 10 times more than I've lost, or 1/100th of the amount that I've lost, is immaterial. When you lose everything, then you start over. And one of the lessons that I had to learn is that there's a big difference between my self-worth and my net worth. I had my net worth and my self-worth entwined. And that's a very deadly combination. I had to restart, reinvent what I was going to do. And one of the key distinctions I made was that there's a big difference between getting rich and staying rich. And I had my focus on getting rich and not on staying rich. And I will tell you, there is a huge difference. Probably the most significant thing that I learned is a result of the financial debacle that I created and lived through. And I created it. Yeah, there was a problem with the market, no question about it, but I took some stupid risk and got arrogant and cocky and started smoking my own exhaust and thinking I was bulletproof. Which often happens with success. Bill Gates said this, and I love this quote. He said, success is a horrible teacher because it lulls smart people into believing they know what they're doing. And that happened to me. I caught a tailwind, and it's happening all over the world right now. It's happening in the United States, it's happening in Europe, it's happening in Netherlands, it's happening all over the world, that people had success until the market shifted, and when the market shifted, suddenly they lost the wind in their sails. They lost the sunshine. It started raining. It's relatively easy to make money when economic conditions are really, really good. So here's the most important lesson that I learned during this time, and it still propels me to this day. The lesson is this, that the quality of my life is directly proportional to the quality of my choices. So let me say that a different way. The people with the best life have the best choices, and the people with the lousiest life have the lousiest choices. The key to great choices is continuing to learn. There's not a way, if the market is changing all the time, and it is, the environment is changing all the time, and it is, then the key is for me to constantly, as you said, reinvent myself, learn, and come up with better choices. And that's what I had to do. I think that's what everybody has to do. There is no such thing as a 100% consistent success with no failures. Everybody's got them. Everybody's got mistakes. One of my heroes is a guy by the name of Buckminster Fuller. Bucky said this. He said, "A mistake is not a sin unless it's not admitted." And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think a lot of times we make mistakes and then we fail to admit them, and then we have to make the same mistake 2 or 3 or 5 times before we get the lesson.
So the key, not only to get rich, but to stay rich in a changing environment, is to embrace change and keep learning and keep adjusting. Is that what you're saying?
Right. That is exactly correct.
Okay. And that brings us to the second part you're going to talk about at the Speakers Club, and that is to not let a crisis like the economic crisis that's going on in the world right now, not let that pass without gaining something from it. And what do you mean when you're saying that you should not let a crisis pass?
So what I mean is this: a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. It seems to me that a primary objective that all of us should have is to learn the lesson. We all make mistakes. Unfortunately, most people that you and I both know will never have 20 years worth of experience. They're going to have 1 year's worth of experience 20 times. And therein lies the problem. Making a mistake is part of it. The key is to make sure that we learn from the mistakes so that we can grow, we have better choices. I'm a big believer in something called a log of lessons learned. And I have a log of lessons learned in which every time I make a mistake, every time there's a success, I try to record What's the lesson that I learned from that mistake, or the lesson that I learned from that success? To me, success, the foundation of success is not how much I know, but rather how fast I learn. You look at the most successful people, and what you find repeatedly is that they have learned from their mistakes. They've learned from the crisis that they've encountered. I look at my own life, and every single success that I have is built on the backbone of a failure. You look at most successful people, 90+%, and over again you see this, that the success they have, that they ultimately attain, was built on the backbone of some catastrophe or crisis or huge failure. I think a couple things happen. I think number one, people that have success tend to get arrogant. I think they then want more. They want to grow. They get greedy. So they have success, they get arrogant, they want more, and then they start ignoring the risk. And you start looking around in your country, or I look in my country, or I have an opportunity to speak to 40 or 50,000 business owners a year all over the world. And what I find repeatedly is that most people could smell the crisis coming, but they ignored it. They said, well, it's only temporary. Well, it ain't going to get me. Well, it won't last long. It's not going to be as bad as what they say it's going to be. And so we wind up ignoring the risks. To me, the key to wealth, to creating a successful business is this. And if your listeners don't listen or write down anything else other than what I'm about to say, this time they've spent with me will have been well worthwhile. Here's the key. You have to think in terms of second-order consequences. Anytime you make a decision, you can't make a decision based on this is going to feel good, or this is, look, the people who eat just one Krispy Kreme donut every day do it because it feels good, it tastes good. But you have to be willing to think in terms of second-order consequences. I think the key is not to ask the question, what could go right? The key is to ask the question, what could go wrong? And if it happens, am I prepared to live with that?
And
so
yeah, continue.
No, I think that's the key question. The key question has to be, what are the second order, not the first order consequences. First order consequences always feel good. That's why most people do what they do, because it feels good. It sounds right. They haven't thought about it. But if you start thinking, think about what's happened to the economy and ask the question, did we really think that all of this was going to last forever? Did we really think that this global expansion and all of the money and the wealth being created was going to just keep going on forever and ever and ever? Did we even back up and stop to think about what could go wrong and ask the question, are we prepared to live with the consequences? It's a very powerful question, and I would urge everybody who's listening to me to write that down and begin using that. It's going to be it's a major theme that I talk about in all of my presentations all over the world.
And if the crisis appears, and if you go bankrupt or something goes terribly wrong with your business, or maybe even in your life, what are the main tools to get back on your feet? If you didn't think about the consequences, the second row consequences.
Yeah, it's a great question. The key to getting back on your feet after you've suffered a crisis is to first regain your stability. It's what I said earlier when I said I spent some time on my psychology. I spent some time on regaining my confidence. In fact, after I went bankrupt, which was in 1991, I lost $100 million. and which is not as much as 100 million euros, but it's still, it was a lot of money, and it was, I lost everything. And the most important thing I did during that time period was to realize that I'm the one who made the mistakes. This was not about the economy. The economy tanked in the late 1980s, and the economy tanked in the late 2000s. But anybody who lost money, they didn't lose money because the economy tanked. They lost money because they placed bets that turned out to be good bets as long as the environment was good. And as soon as the environment changed and the environment became bad, it turned out to be bad bets. What I had to do is train myself to think. And that is so rare that most business owners say they do it, but the reality is they rarely do. Most people, when they sit down to think, take a nap. Because they don't know how to do it. Business is an intellectual sport. And what I found is that I was playing the game of business with my emotions and my glands instead of my brain. And the instant you play the game of business with your emotion, your gut, and your glands, it's just a matter of time before you get wiped out. And it happens over and over again because people don't understand the rules of the game.
So does that mean that if you have to start, running your business more intellectually, does it mean you have to go to university or go to school and take a degree in business, or how do you get there?
No, it's not. It's a great question. It's not about going to school necessarily, although I'm a huge believer in education. I think most people who get wiped out, most people who have financial problems, could have avoided those financial problems even if they only had a third-grade education. What's required is not necessarily a degree from Harvard or Stanford or the London School of Economics in order to be a great business owner. What is required is to have the business skills and tools. And that's, candidly, that's what I teach all over the world. Every place I go, my job is to teach business owners the business skills and tools that will allow them to create, here comes the key word, will allow them to create sustainable success. The key is not to get rich. The key is to stay rich. And staying good at anything requires business skills and tools. You have to think like a business owner, not like an operator. Operators think about their product. Business owners think about the market. Operators think about how do we Facebook more, or how do we tweet more, or how do we use social media? And I'm in favor of all of those. But at the end of the day, Facebooking and tweeting is not going to solve a cash flow crisis. The key, there are fundamentals to business, just like there's fundamentals to ping pong, just like there's fundamentals to being a great downhill skier. There's fundamentals, and if you ignore the fundamentals, you will never create the success that you'd like to have. So I think it's critical to learn the fundamentals. I don't think it's critical to do it by going back to college, or university, although that is a great option.
Okay. Here at the end, I would like to ask you, we are in an economic crisis, in a financial crisis, and in environmental crisis. Everything says crisis in the world right now. You yourself still invest in businesses and buy businesses, try to develop businesses. A lot of the users here at Amino do a lot of different stuff. It's like from the IT entrepreneurs to something completely different. So do you have some advice if some of the viewers are thinking about starting something up? Which kind of businesses would be the ideal businesses to start up during a crisis?
What a great question. Here are a few of the businesses that got started during a crisis. I think you will have heard of all of them. Microsoft, CNN, Federal Express, GE, Hyatt Hotels, Hewlett-Packard, Fortune Magazine. Those are just a few of the businesses that started during a huge economic crisis. The key, anytime you start a business, anytime you look at a business, the key is not whether or not the idea is a good one. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody has got a good idea. The question is not whether or not it's a good idea. The question is, can you execute on that idea? Can you create a sustainable revenue stream from that idea? Can you convert that revenue into profits and cash? Can you find a compelling unmet need in the market? So here comes something that everybody should write down. If you want to make a lot of money, here's all you got to do. Find the gap between where customers are frustrated and what the competition is doing. Find the gap between where customers are frustrated and what the competition is doing. You fill that gap, you will get filthy, stinking rich. Sandy, my wife, and I just got back from, we landed earlier today. I have not been to bed yet. We flew all night from Hawaii back to Texas, and then I found out that we were doing this interview with you, so I took a shower real quick. But one of the things that happened on this flight is something that happens frequently, and I think most travelers have had this experience, which is the airline loses your luggage. It is so frustrating to have your luggage lost. The airline never apologizes, but they lost our luggage on this trip, which happens, it seems like, about once every 5 or 6 or 7 times that we travel. If I was going to start an airline, which I'm not going to do, but if I was going to start an airline, the gap that I would fill would be this. If we lose your luggage, your flight is free. Why should you have to pay for your flight if we don't deliver your luggage? Part of what you're asking us to do is to deliver you and your luggage to your destination and do it safely. So I would charge a premium for that service. If I was an airline, I would charge a premium for that service. But I promise you that if I started that airline, I would make a gob of money. And the reason is because most travelers would pay a little premium, a little insurance policy, in order to know that the luggage was going to arrive at the same time they did. And if it didn't arrive, then the flight would be free. That's what I'm talking about on filling the gap. And I have hundreds of examples like that if your listeners will just think about where's the gap and what are the business skills and tools that I need to have in order to execute on that idea, then I think they'll find their odds of creating sustainable success go way up.
So there's a free advice if you need to start up a business, if anybody wants to go into to air flights. Here at the end, Mr. Cunningham, I would like to ask you a question that you've probably heard a million times as well, but it's still a question that most entrepreneurs would ask you if they could, and that is, what is your single most important advice for new entrepreneurs who are starting up a business? What is the single most important advice you could give them?
Change is your friend. Change is what creates opportunities. If there was no change, there would be no opportunities. A crisis is simply a time where the mediocre players get washed out of the market. Strong players get stronger. There's all kinds of opportunities that have now been created that weren't there 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. I think you have to be sharper in a time of crisis than you do when money is easy. When money is flowing, everybody tends to get a little sloppy. most people have tightened up their purse strings now and become a little more frugal. And I think that kind of mentality is important. One of my mentors told me years ago that how you run your business during the good times will directly impact how well your business deals with the bad times. Most business owners got a little sloppy during the good times and they thought it was going to last forever, and now that it isn't lasting forever, every single person who's struggling right now can think back on stupid decisions that they made back during the good times, and they wish that they could do it again and do it a little differently than they did before. Look, I think change is a remarkable opportunity for all of us, and the change that we're all experiencing, I'm experiencing it, everybody I know is experiencing it. Nobody has the luxury of doing it exactly the way they did it 4 years ago. All of us have had to reinvent. I love that word. Reinvent ourselves so that we have an opportunity to take advantage of the changes that are coming our way. If we don't reinvent, then all the changes are going to appear to be problems. If we do reinvent, all the changes will appear to be opportunities.
Keith Cunningham, thank you so much for taking time to say hello to Amino's viewers, and thank you for the advice. We're looking forward to seeing you in Copenhagen in October, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you in October.
Thank you.